What happens when water is exposed to EMF, or wireless radiation? Here's something you may not know. Water is conscious, and it responds vibrationally to whatever it is exposed to. At Omnia, we've done an experiment where we froze and photographed 3 samples of water. Water which was not exposed to EMF radiation, the baseline, looked like this. Water which was exposed to an EMF field, a 5G radiation field in fact, looked like this. And water which was exposed to EMF that is balanced by the OMNIA radiation balancer looked like this. See the difference? Remember, your body is 70% water. And here's a special offer for the Journey to Truth crowd. Just enter the word truth in caps at the checkout for your 10% discount.
Vampires one day and was like, Jessica, you need to be real careful about vampires.
Well,
really?
Yeah.
Man, you need it. This is juicy content for the podcast.
Yeah.
I know, right? I saw you hit record. I know what's up.
Hey guys, welcome back. Just a few announcements before we get started today. So our next webinar coming up on September 24th is on DUMS, the Agartha Network, Hollow Earth. We call it a deep dive into the subterranean infrastructure. You guys are going to love it. We've been doing a lot of research. So far, we're at 91 slides, and it's still growing. So it's going to be another long one. The impossibility of covering the entire underworld in one webinar it's impossible, but we're going to do our best and provide some whistleblower testimonies and some really juicy information that's not really readily available, stuff that we've just come across over the years. So if you're interested in that, we have that and other webinars on our Patreon. It's only $5 to sign up, and that link is below in the description. Also, Margie K, you guys know Margie K. She reached out to me and asked me to speak at her conference coming up in Springfield, Missouri over Halloween, October 30th, 31st, and November 1st. I'll be speaking on the first day, so I'm super excited about that opportunity. She just wants me to share some of my stories, and I'll be talking about some of my own inner earth stories at that conference as well. And that ticket is available. Those tickets are still available, and I'll have that link below in the description. And as you know, our documentary is finally publicly available. As Jessica I was just on Jessica's show the other night and we talked about it, and Jessica, you loved it. You had some great stuff to say about it. So I'd love to hear your feedback, and maybe you could tell us what you thought about it.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Your documentary is fantastic. I mean, from the very beginning where you guys had the drone shots of the mounds, I mean, it just pulled all this information together for me with the stuff that I researched, and I've been remote viewing. It pulls it all together, from the giants to the ET connection to, even in my field, I talk about dogmen being connected and portals being around these mounds, because I visit mounds pretty often myself. We have 2 of them near where I live. And yeah, it's just fantastic. If you guys haven't seen that yet, I highly recommend watching that. Because I can tell you guys put a lot of work into that, and it's amazing.
Well, thank you. We did.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And if anyone is interested, you can go to CahokiaUntold.com and you can watch it there. That link is below as well. But tonight we are joined by Jessica Jones, as you know, the cryptid Huntress. And I specifically reached out to her because I wanted to talk about a lot of her remote viewing data on the underground cities, the underground tunnels, DUMS, maybe even inner earth, SSP bases, portals, all the above, cryptid breeding programs. So I know you're constantly doing this stuff every week. You're getting blind targets handed to you from certain individuals, and aside from your own research and your own field investigations, and I know you have a lot to share. So let's just dive in. And what's going on underground, y'all?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. What's going on underground, y'all? And all these facilities and stuff. And here's the thing. When I first started coming across underground facilities and the SSP, mind you, I wasn't very familiar with the SSP, and I certainly was not going around looking for underground facilities. I was tasked with targets involving cryptids. people that were attacked who it was suspected potentially like a dog man might have taken them or killed them. I was also looking into, Bigfoot sightings and just usually my targets deal with unsolved mysteries. Okay. And that's how I kind of started off doing, I do shows on that actually on Thursday nights on my channel, The Cryptid Huntress, over on YouTube and across social media. And so I was looking into cryptids, and lo and behold, when I'm assigning these targets, I'm looking at the entire, if it's an incident that happened or if it's just an alleged cryptid that's on that property. I'm looking at the whole property there, and I'm going up and down and all around this property and to see what happened. And I've stumbled across many underground facilities, and as a remote viewer, I have to be kind of careful where I'm kind of digging around, as they say. And so, but I've done some exploring, and absolutely places that I've been tasked with, like just coordinates, basically, even geographical coordinates, places that are national parks. A lot of them are government-owned lands. Most of them are actually, where these facilities are. Yeah. I think the first one that I can remember where I came across some secret space program information with one of my targets was I was looking into an alleged dogman sighting that there's a podcaster and author out there, D.A. Roberts actually had asked me to remote view a property. Okay. Or this place is called the Joe Bald Wreck area, where he had what he thought might be a dogman sighting. And he had a video of something peeking around a tree. And I had remote viewed that. And I found there was information in my data that said SSP. And I wasn't really sure what that was, but I knew that you guys talked about the secret space program pretty often. And it did correlate with some of the information that I had heard about with your programs that y'all do. And there's an underground facility there, and it said that it was a layover hub, if that's even possible, a layover hub for the SSP. But yeah, they had all sorts of labs down there where they were working with dogmen and creating chimeras and all sorts of weird stuff was going on down there, according to my data.
And where was this located?
Missouri. I believe it's called the Joe Bald Wreck area.
Right. That's way south, way southern Missouri, almost on the border. But that's interesting, and it doesn't surprise me. Missouri, the more and more I'm researching this area, it's like there's a lot going on here, even in St. Louis. But we covered some in our documentary. But I mean, it's pretty wild. And it's interesting that Missouri got voted #1 place to survive an alien invasion. And one of my friends, it was on the radio. I was working with my dad on this construction job we were doing, and I overheard it on the radio. Like I was walking by and I had to stop. I'm like, wait, did I just hear that right? And then I did hear it right. So there's a whole list of potential places that survive an invasion. And for some reason, Missouri got voted #1. And I told this to my friend, and she's like, well, yeah, they wouldn't attack their own headquarters. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And she seems to think that there's a lot going on here, nefarious stuff, which I can attest to just from the frequencies here and stuff. It's just not always the highest vibe place, but it doesn't surprise me. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. We get a lot of reports of dogmen in the Missouri area, and even the Ozark, is it the Ozarks howler? Okay. That's kind of like a dogman out there. There's a lot of dogmen out in the Midwest, a lot of cryptids, period. Okay. A lot of cryptids. Yeah. And I've heard recently a story of at least it's 1 to 2 dogmen under the St. Louis Arch being shot. Okay. In broad daylight in front of people. Now that's secondhand knowledge. I wasn't there, but that's just a story that's going around right now in the community. That, potentially that St. Louis Arch is a portal or something is what I've been told.
Yeah. I mean, we've
that from many sources. Yeah.
Right. We've heard that, but the dogmen thing I've never heard except from you. If that was true, if they were shot in public, this would be one of those situations where I can imagine they would like mind wipe all the witnesses. I mean, yeah, I don't doubt that they'd do that if there were witnesses. They could easily just, whatever they need to do, just erase that little give you a false screen memory or whatever. We've heard a number of people talk about the arch being a portal. I've never heard about dogmen coming through. I've heard the story where somebody did sneak through the portal and they had to detain them. And apparently there's a gatekeeper that constantly watches the portal, and he is disguised as a homeless person there under the arch. Who knows? Who knows, right?
Yeah. This world is so strange. And this actually, so that dogman story, it goes back, it circles back around to something that I've heard about. There's a gentleman that goes on one of these podcasts. It's called, it's Jeff Nadolny's channel. Okay. And it's called Dogman and Paranormal Research or something like that. And there's a gentleman that goes on, he claims to be a part of this thing called the Dogman breeding program that is here in the United States. And this gentleman said, now this is coming from that channel. So I don't have firsthand knowledge of all this, but he says that they've had this breeding program going on with Sasquatch, werewolves, and dogmen since the 1950s. And that man, I think it was one of those dogmen allegedly could have been part of that program that were shot there because they have these dogmen, werewolves, and Sasquatch. They say have handlers, they're chipped, they're collared. I'm not going to say it's the government. I think this guy says it's the government. Okay. But if it's not the government, it's some kind of special agency that do utilize cryptids allegedly for military purposes, for wartime, for even domestic defense here in our country, and also to go after people. Like, let's just say assassinations and things like that.
Right.
Doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
There's an old James Caspol interview where he talks about this specifically with personal firsthand knowledge of a mission he was involved in with dogmen. And he talks about exactly everything that you're talking about now. This was years ago that he was blowing the whistle on this stuff. And if I could find that interview, maybe I'll link it, but I sent it to you. Actually, I don't know if you watched it, but I think it's all highly likely. Yeah.
Anything's possible at this point. Okay. Because the things that I've seen personally, I mean, I'm a field researcher, so I'm out in the woods all the time. I have never come across a dogman, or a dogman has never come across me either. So not that I know of, I've never seen one, but I know they're out there. I have too many people who I know personally who have experienced them. I was just talking to somebody this morning who's a good friend of mine who lives up in Kentucky, and they have an enormous amount of dogman sightings up there. That's another place that I was tasked with a remote viewing target of a family who back in the 1980s was allegedly mauled to death by a dogman in the land between the lakes. I believe that's a national park up there. And this was in 1982. There was a whole lot of, there's evidence to support it from eyewitness testimonies that happened up there. The North American Dogman Project had done a documentary on it and brought in some eyewitnesses from some things that had happened with conversations with the police officers that worked the area. But people were still there. There wasn't like super solid proof, but there were eyewitness accounts about it. Right. Where a family, there was a husband, a wife, and a son and a daughter. Mm. They went to the wrong place at the wrong time, apparently, in there.
Yeah, and so this would explain now, like we hear about Sasquatch being these benevolent beings, interdimensional, high frequency, high vibe. So if we're talking about some government or shadow government grown genetic experiment, right, some breeding program that's being released to be aggressive, and these would be the creatures that are attacking people, I would say, over the like regular heart-centered Sasquatch, I guess you could say. Yeah. So I think that's the difference. I think we have organic beings and then we have grown laboratory experiments.
Well, actually, I think there's a whole bunch of different categories because we've got the clones. Okay, so that's something totally different. And then with the breeding program, from what I've been told, and I did remember this was tasked to me as a blind target. Just the dogman breeding program alone, and they say that, and according to my data, also they're natural. They're bred like dogs would be bred, like dog breeders do, that kind of a thing. They're not genetically spliced and all that. According to This is according to what that guy says on that channel. But they're not like cloned. They're not genetically modified. They're actually like from planet Earth, I guess. They're from here. They're organic, and they just breed them. But then we've got the clones, which I do believe that's happening as well. I think that cryptids are being cloned, and gosh, Lord knows what they're putting in them, and we've got the whole demonic aspect that comes into it. And
have you ever come across cloning facilities in your remote viewing?
Oh, I've come across the underground facilities have cloning facilities in them, I do believe.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. A lot of like chimera actions going on in some of these facilities. I have stumbled upon that. Chimeras are a big thing. And actually, as a matter of fact, when I was at y'all's conference, which was amazing, by the way, thank you for letting me speak there.
Mm-hmm. Our pleasure.
Thank you. Our friend Daryl James came up to me and said, "Hey, I got to tell you about some of the human animal hybrids I experienced down in some underground facilities." And of course, I was like, "Oh my gosh, yes, please!" I got to hear about this. And I ended up bringing him on my show eventually after we got back home. And
which was an excellent episode. I recommend everyone watch that. Yeah.
Thank you. It was one of my favorites. I mean, all of my shows are my favorite. Okay, I love all my shows, but that was one of my top favorites. Where he talked about, and he's talked about it on your show as well. About, I think it's called Max. Okay, and it's like a human spider hybrid, which is terrifying. Okay. But he was saying that pretty much any kind of animal that you could think of has been mixed with human DNA. Yeah. Which is really scary.
We're going to cover some of that in our webinar as far as Dulce, New Mexico and Nightmare Hall and what's going on in those levels underground there. There's been, firsthand whistleblower testimonies about horrific things. But Aaron, were you going to say something just a minute ago?
No, you already said it. I was saying, I think clones, is they have, as we know, you can clone a being just from having its DNA. So all they need is DNA of Sasquatch or of Dogman or whatever, and they can clone an entire being, and then they can control it, and make it do whatever they're bidding or whatever they want to do. So I'm sure that's going on, like you said, the breeding programs as well. And then there's the organic benevolent, or the organic beings that, are obviously there as well. And I like, do you know about Sunbow, right? Or have you ever heard of
Sunbow? I'm not familiar with that.
Okay. We had him on the show a few months ago.
Oh, and I did see that. I saw that. And he communicates with the Sasquatch.
Yeah. And he's written 3 books called The Sasquatch Message to Humanity, where it's like channeling a Sasquatch elder, supposedly. And it's giving, like, the first book is amazing because it's just giving all this information about them, and they're giving the information about us, and it's talking about how they constantly talk about, like, they call them the Dark Lords, which would be like the Cabal or the evil forces on this planet, and how their race is constantly under attack by the Dark Lords, as they call it, and as well as us, obviously. And they're like, that's basically the main reason why we have to stay in hiding so much, and we can't just like openly come out, because for one, they're under attack directly by them, but then most of humanity is still like mind controlled in the system to where it's not safe as well, so it's like until like the awakening reaches a certain point, then they'll be able to like fully come out, and we'll be able to live with them.
That's another good point, because they talked about how, like, the normal Sasquatch, they get hunted down by the government in the black helicopters. And we've heard the sightings of that as well. If there's a Bigfoot sighting, sometimes the black helicopters will come over. They're hunting them down as well. Have you come across any of that, Jessica?
100%. Absolutely. It's very sad, actually, because I feel like Sasquatch are just big, hairy humans, in my opinion. Okay. Right. Yeah. But I've actually been sent a video of, it was either military or law enforcement of some sort, I don't know, in a helicopter, and they had a thermal device that had a Sasquatch in its sights. And I didn't see the part where they eradicated it, unfortunately, from what I was told, but they were hunting them down. Now, my guys have been out in the field up in, let's just say, national parks, potentially in North Carolina. Okay. And men come out in full military SWAT team kind of gear. And when the guys asked, hey, what are y'all doing out here? They looked at them and said, we're doing the same thing you're doing, and smiled and walked away. But fully armed, was all their full regalia on.
Right.
So they're out there doing this.
It's not the same thing. It's
not the same.
Completely different intention.
Not the same thing. Yeah. My guys weren't out there hunting down Bigfoots and stuff, but they were out there looking for them. You know.
Right.
Completely different motive. Right.
Totally. Yeah. But they were out there. So yeah. This happens. And circling back to that dogman breeding program that allegedly is going on, that I've heard about. And my buddy Nick Sylvester came on my show and is the one that brought this all to my attention. And so I give him credit, but he got it from Victor and that other channel. And so give everybody credit. Okay. So Jeff Nadolny and Victor and Nick Sylvester. Okay. So that's where I'm getting my information from. I don't know this firsthand. Okay. So let me reiterate. But they said that, so recently they've decided to eradicate all of the assets, let's just call them, the werewolves, the dogmen, and the Sasquatch. And I'm not exactly sure why. Either it's to cover the program up. I don't know why, or maybe they've just gotten out of control, and some of the beings, like some of the dogmen, potentially have gone rogue, and they are hunting down and hurting humans, killing humans. There's different numbers that go with that. I heard that like 140, 150 people were confirmed deceased, killed by some of these assets, let's just say, over the past year. And so they do go out and have what I like to call critter control and go out and have to take care of those rogue cryptids. Okay. And I actually had a man that came on my show about a week or two ago who has a team that goes out there and does critter control, let's just say, because there are a lot, they are a danger. Some of these dogmen are a danger to people. So
rogue.
Yeah. So it happens.
Rogue cryptids. I like that term.
Rogue
and
cryptids.
I think, so I wonder if that's like, that sucks for the actual Sasquatch, right? The ones
it does.
The rogue cryptids are being hunted down, so now they have to watch out. Maybe they don't know who's who when they're hunting them down. So anything that they come across, but I think some of them they might be able to just interdimensionally, hop through a portal or whatever. Which I know you've remote viewed portals as well. Maybe you could talk about that. I know you've talked about it on our show before, but this is the first time we've interviewed you for a solo interview. You've been on with other people and roundtables, so maybe we can get into the portal aspect of what's going on in some of these areas, even like the national parks too.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And so I've had blind targets that were just Earth's natural weaponized portals. Okay, that was one of my targets that Barry Littleton gave me, and you guys know Barry. And and he comes on my show. We do a lot of work together, actually. So I give him credit for some of these really awesome blind coordinate remote viewing targets that he gives me. And I just love it. It's like my favorite thing to do. It's my favorite hobby is remote viewing, if y'all hadn't noticed, other than Bigfooting. Okay. But yeah, my team. Okay. So for the people in the audience who are not familiar with my background, I am originally a Bigfoot field researcher. I've been researching in the field since 2011. And I'm on 3 separate teams, and I work with people from all over the country. But my focus is in the southeastern United States, and I'm out in the field all the time with my team and with my friends. And we are, one of my teams is pretty well known for one incident. Well, we do a lot of cutting edge research, but we had an incident where we had a portal show up in the field. We didn't know it was a portal, but it turned out to be what we consider to be a portal. A big cube. Okay, this is it's called the Meadow Project, and some people may be familiar with the head of my team is Trey Hudson. He wrote a book called The Meadow Project: Explorations into the South Skinwalker Ranch. Okay, and so our research is in that book. It's ongoing, of course, but we had this thing that showed up, and 2 of our team members were sent over to check this thing out. And as they walked up to it, they were guided over to it over our ham radios. They got over to it. They didn't see anything. But as they walked up to this cube, their heat signatures disappeared. And they said the environment changed. And from the stars disappearing to the vegetation changing on the ground, from being grassy and brushy to being smooth. Stars were gone. The temperature dropped a little bit. And they said it was like walking into a black velvet curtain. And so they knew something was off. Both of them stepped back and got out of it. They didn't know they were getting out of anything because it was just an open field. It was just a little off. Okay. And so when they came out of it, their heat signatures reappeared. We have this on video. Okay. And it hasn't been released to the public yet, but it's been shown to the public at conferences and things like that. But the thing shrunk down, by the way. As soon as I got out of it, it shrunk down and then it moved and it disappeared. All right. Which was odd. And so us being remote viewers and things like that, we determined it was a portal. Now, had those guys not stepped out of it, would they have disappeared with it? Hey, maybe, maybe so.
Did they experience any health effects or anything of that nature?
Both. Yes, they did. Both of them got sick with pretty major health issues within, a short while after, within a year or so. I mean, this portal was 5 years ago. Okay. So it's been a while. And, one of them got an aggressive form of cancer, and he's still kind of battling that to this day. And the other gentleman, he got a bad heart condition, and he has since passed. So yeah, and there was a spike of radiation. Usually there are spikes of radiation whenever we're out in the field and we have any kind of paranormal activity go down, like UFO stuff, light beings, orbs, Bigfoot stuff. Whatever's going on out there, we'll get a spike of radiation, and there was definitely a spike of radiation. So we don't say, hey, that's why they got sick, but we have our suspicions over that. So my interest has definitely been in portals.
Yeah, how could you not have suspicions about that?
Yeah.
So have you come across any holographic or hologram entrances or mountains or anything of that nature?
Oh, yeah.
Any of that sort of tech in the field?
Yes. Okay. So that's interesting because those portals seemed kind of holographic. Okay. And that's not the first time that anybody on our team has experienced something like that. In another location, we have bases like where we go and do our research, whatever I call them bases, but in the field, base camps, whatever you want to call it. And there's one up in another state. One of those gentlemen that walked through that portal that we have on video, he experienced another portal with another one of my teammates up in another state in another area. And it was almost like you could kind of see it like an archway kind of thing, kind of almost holographic would be a good way to describe that. Yes. Now I have remote viewed. One of my blind targets was the holographic mountain. I want to say
Mount Adams.
There's something Mount Adams. Yeah, maybe it was Mount Adams. One of those that Barry gave me. I have so many targets, y'all.
It was. I remember you specifically in that video. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Holographic mountain. I mean, there's UFOs, bases, inner Earth connections to these things. It's way more common than most people would ever assume. A lot of holographic stuff. And yeah.
That's, I mean, I agree. And I think that like a lot of these entrances to these bases are disguised by holographic technology. So it'll look like just a solid mountain to you, but if you could go up and walk through it. And I had a friend who told a story over in Colombia or something about, they had this like shaman guide that took him into the woods or whatever for like 7 days. And he ended up disappearing, and they were trying to find him. And there was like this weird like rock in the middle of the whole jungle, and these really like 12 feet tall beings just came walking out of it, and they told their friends what happened. They said, he's with us, and there's like this inner Earth, there's like a whole other dimension inside of this mountain, and somehow or another they were taken inside, and they said it was like there was no they weren't inside of a mountain. They said it was a sky. It was a whole other reality that led to like an inner Earth civilization. Anyway, it's a wild story. I had one of my friends heard the story, and she went out there personally to go check it out herself. Didn't find anything, didn't see anything. On the last day, she swears that she saw a actual unicorn that came up and actually nudged her.
Wow.
And
a white unicorn.
A white unicorn.
Yeah.
And she thinks that was like confirming, like, hey, you didn't get to see what you came to see, but we're here. This does exist. So
wow. Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay. And so with the holograms and these portals and all this stuff that people are experiencing out there, it kind of leads me in the direction of, that's where a lot of these missing people are going out of our national parks, and I know that's a little more on the dark side of things when you're talking about like inner earth and stuff like that. But that's a real issue that we have right now. We have so many missing people in these parks, and you guys know better than anybody. There's something nefarious going on, like super nefarious. But people are unwittingly walking into places that look like the tree line in a forest, and they're ending up in a whole other world. Somewhere else. And maybe it's not all nefarious. Maybe it's just, it's just the way it is. I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
It's very confusing.
Well,
not knowing all the answers.
You almost wonder if like those, if it's hologram technology or if there are portals that are there already that are known, and that's why they made it into a national park to protect that area. So, I mean, it's anyone's guess. I'm sure there's people out there in the know, right?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Gonna shift gears a little bit. Before I do that, Inner Earth itself, or have you come across any data or anything that would suggest that some of these entrances lead to a massive underground city?
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so I've remote viewed things from High Brazil, the Phantom Island. Okay, there's a Phantom Island that came from Inner Earth, according to my data. Something that is super, super interesting, the Giant of Kandahar. Okay. And a lot of people are familiar with that. And I was going to bring that up when we were talking about cloning a while ago, because that was one of my blind targets as well. And the Giant of Kandahar, that's an interesting story because people have heard these stories. And I got to say, after I did the show on this, I had a gentleman contact me who, in private, who told me that his child was actually, and it's not a child, it's an adult, had been part of one of those groups that went up there to get that giant. Okay. And that my data was correct, he said, according to what he had been told. But the military sent some teams in to go, they're up in Afghanistan, in Kandahar. And they were, well, the story didn't go like they were hunting down a giant. They happened upon a giant, according to the story. But with my data suggests that they were on a mission to go obtain a sample from a giant there. They had a helicopter ready to go with a net. This is with the second team that went in to go look for the missing first team that went in to the mountains. And when they got there, the giants were waiting for them and were ready to attack. And I was picking up the giants were actually from Inner Earth. There was an Inner Earth aspect, like they came from Inner Earth. But they were there. They were waiting for those guys, and they fought back. And the second team that came in and didn't manage to kill one of them. And they took it for a sample. And what my data was saying was that it was a sample for cloning purposes. And I mean, you just got to assume our military is making super soldiers out of these things somewhere. Or they're injecting the DNA into regular humans. I mean, who knows what they're doing?
Right, all the above.
All of it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard that. I've read that account about them attacking the giants in the cave. And there's actually detailed descriptions online out there. And even artist depictions of the giant being carried away in a net and a helicopter and all that stuff. It's all, it's a pretty interesting one to dive into. But what I was going to ask is something I don't hear you talk about much, but I know you've talked about it, is the underwater cryptids and the underwater bases or undersea bases as well. Can you share any of that data with us? Yeah.
I can't remember if I've done an underground base yet. I don't know if I've done that, but I have done water cryptids. Okay. Like aquatic extraterrestrials. And in the Kappas out of Japan. That was my show from last week that Barry gave me 2 different targets. And of course I went to the lake this weekend and I was terrified to get in that water. Okay. After this show. But anyways, yeah. I I'm trying to think if I've done an underground base in
You mean
the water.
undersea? Undersea?
Undersea. Yeah, that's what I meant.
Well, what kind of underwater cryptids have you come across, or ETs or whatever?
From what I can, the most recent ones were the Nomo. Okay, the Nomo are creatures that they're like mer people, like mermaids and mermen, but they're not pretty ones. Okay, they were a little terrifying. That the Nomo, the Dogon tribe, I guess down in Africa, had encountered, and so Barry was interested to see if those were even real. And that's the funny thing is like Barry will give me Barry Littleton. He'll task me with some coordinates. And he doesn't know if these things are real or not, but he gives them to me to see if I can get some data out of them. And so yeah, I got some data out of those. I mean, I was picking up on mermaids and stuff. Absolutely. And so I do believe those are real. I do believe they even exist to this day out there. And in the Kappas, that's a strange one. My goodness, they almost look kind of human, but they have like a bird beak, and they have a turtle shell, and they're savage, man. They're savage. Like they'll drown people, they'll eat them, they kidnap kids, they assault women. Like they're horrible.
What are they called again?
Kappas, Kappa, a Kappa.
Okay, Kappa.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Have you heard of those, Aaron?
I have not. I haven't heard of that.
So it's like a Ninja Turtle, like with a turtle shell?
Looks like, somebody in the chat actually said during the show, they said this looks like a ninja, like something they based the Ninja Turtles off of.
I was just going to say, maybe that's where they got it from.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, that's a whole other rabbit hole with the Ninja Turtles, because they've got, my son watches them sometimes, and they talk about the multiverse, and they have all the different dimensions of the different turtles. Every season they're a different dimension, and sometimes they overlap and they meet each other in person.
Wow,
they look a little bit different. Yeah,
advanced a lot since when I was a kid watching.
Yeah, right. It was like just underground sewer dwellers whenever we were kids.
Right, in the early 90s. Yeah.
But but it is still a genetic mutation. It is an experiment. Essentially, they make it seem accidental in the show, but maybe it's like hinting at a real program, right?
Yeah, or just real creatures, and they're trying to put a backstory to it before we see the real thing.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason that these things go way back for centuries and centuries. I mean, they have statues, like ancient statues of the Kappas in Japan.
Right.
Okay. And even the like reptilian lizard people and things like that. I mean, they go back for centuries. Stories of them. They didn't just come out of nowhere.
So have you come across underwater portals?
Well, not in remote viewing data that I can recall. I always suspected that the Loch Ness Monster might be coming out of a portal under the water. So I don't know, but I have not been assigned that target yet. So I don't know where that's coming from.
Are you able to talk a little bit about how you like achieve a blind target? Like what data are you working with? Is it just specifically coordinates, or do you get other information?
I get a set of 8 numbers. I get 2 sets of 4 numbers. So that's what I usually do is called coordinate remote viewing. And I've been trained on several different modes of remote viewing, but that is the main mode that I use, especially for the targets that I do for the show that I do, so that I can have some actual data written down for people to see and see the process that I use. For these, and plus, like, let's just say, for instance, last night, the head of my team will send out a high priority target occasionally, and it's just a set of numbers. And when I get a high priority target, it's usually like a missing person or a cold case or it's a mysterious death or something. And so last night was a tough one. But I'm not going to get into details about it, but it was someone who had died. And so with the remote viewing, I am given coordinates, and we call them coordinates. Even though they're not usually geographical coordinates, they can be, but they are just a set of numbers, random, super random, but they're assigned to a target. Okay. Just like the target for the Kappas was like the Japanese Kappas, like what are they?
Right. So basically, if I wanted to give you a blind target, I would have the place in my mind, and I would assign numbers to that location without telling you. And I just give you the numbers, and based on the intention that I put into the numbers, you can collect data from it.
That's it. That's exactly right. Yeah.
It's
So
impressive.
yeah, I'm gonna expect a couple of targets from you now, Tyler. Okay.
I got them. I got them lined up.
Give you
Okay.
some targets.
Be sure. Yeah, you too, Aaron. Yeah. Now I don't want everybody sending me targets, y'all. I'm just telling Aaron and Tyler too.
You're gonna get thousands of them now. Yeah.
Yes.
So you just recently got back from Montauk. You were on a trip at Montauk Camp Hero, right? That's what it's called.
Correct. Yeah.
And how was it? Can you tell us about it? Did you have any interesting things happen there?
Yes, it was amazing. It was such a great trip. It was so interesting. So I went with a group of people, including James Rink, who I met at your conference. Okay, a big group of us went up to Montauk, New York, and for people who are not familiar with that area, that is where the Project Montauk allegedly took place up there. And I say allegedly, even though I was with a whole bunch of survivors of that program. There were about 25 of us, I think. I mean, we had 2 big houses full of people up there. And some of our friends were from like Czechoslovakia and stuff. Like we had people from all over the world that came up and joined us.
Wow.
We even had one of the sponsors of our trip was Bob Estes with ST Satellites and stuff. I mean,
wow.
we had such an amazing group of people with us, and I had some of my Bigfooting friends come and meet us, like Long Island Bigfoot Mike, and Brian from Montauk is Strange on YouTube. He had the entire history of Camp Hero down pat. Like he was like our tour guide that weekend. It has a very dark history. Okay, Camp Hero is where this project took place, and it was full of MK Ultra mind control, kidnapping children, drugs. I mean, basically, the Stranger Things TV series was based off of Project Montauk, and it was like a watered down light version from what really happened.
Down. Very watered
very
down.
much. Yeah, we had Arkeem Ra with us, and James Rink, and several other people. Not everybody wanted to be named. Okay. They were there anonymously. So, but yeah, it was, I was actually a little worried going into this trip because I was worried it was going to be really traumatic for a lot of people. And I don't believe that I was ever a part of any of those programs. But I was there for support. And I was also there because there's different reasons I was there. But for one of the reasons, they have a Sasquatch allegedly on that property. And my friend Mike, who I invited up to come hang out with us, he has pictures of this thing. They call it Junior. And Junior was part of the Montauk project. And he still roams the area there. And Mike has had some contact with him. So, yeah. And as a matter of fact, Mike and some of the guys got a video of a Sasquatch on the property while we were there.
Really?
So yeah,
Nice.
so we were there I was there for that. In addition, also, it's like, but wait, there's more. It was the anniversary of the USS Eldridge potentially showing up in the ocean right there at Camp Hero.
Mm-hmm.
Every 20 years. Oh, this is like the coolest thing ever. Every 20 years, there is what they call a biorhythm biocamp portal that opens up there at Montauk. And they say that if you're posted up on the beach, or there's like a 5-mile span of like where this thing could show up. And it's a portal, and it's the USS Eldridge from the Philadelphia experiment stuck in a time loop over and over again every 20 years. Apparently this is like what they were using to teleport the ship. Okay. And to make it go invisible back in 1943, they were utilizing this biocamp rhythm, this portal that was going to open up. It's like this burst of energy. And so we were going to be there to go witness this ship showing up. Now, there was a group of us that rented a boat. They had a big boat. And some of those guys were out on the ocean, guys and ladies, like 8 or 10 of them were out in the ocean that morning of August the 12th. It happens every 20 years on August the 12th. That was on a Saturday.
Right.
And
that's a Syrian portal as well, which is interesting.
Yeah.
That's right.
So that's what they were utilizing for that experiment. And so on August 12th, 2023, we were all there. And some of us were out on the shoreline. We were posted up along the beach up in Montauk and in Camp Hero. We had a group in the boat. And the strangest thing happened, you guys. That morning, I mean, the weather had been so perfect and so beautiful, and the skies were clear. And my friend Brian and Arkeem Ra and I were in a car together. We were going to drive out to where the ocean was to go see this that morning, and this strange fog rolled in. And I'm not saying fogs are not natural. Okay, it's totally natural to have fog out by the ocean, but it kind of came in a little late in the morning, and it stayed all day. It was so bad we could not see anything in that ocean that morning. And around 3:00 that afternoon, 3:30 p.m., the fog finally rolled out, and the sky cleared up perfectly. But it was very odd because we had been there we were there for almost a week. Okay?
They were hiding something.
They were 100% hiding something, and we all had the same feeling about it. It was very unnatural. It was weather manipulated. Okay, and it's almost like they had fog machines that just kind of blew it in, because it was more than just us out there looking for it. I think other people knew about it, and but we were there for it. The people in the boat, they said that, okay, and I had remote viewed it. Another part of my job of going there, I remote viewed what was going to happen that morning and where the USS Eldridge would be and like what to look out for. Okay. And my data was suggesting it was, the waves would be moving perpendicular to each other, almost like in squares. Okay. Like square waves. And it would, I was just seeing like square clouds, square waves, something like things crashing together. And the data was saying, watch out for that. Like, watch out. Like, it could be dangerous. Okay. I personally didn't want to get sucked into a portal. Okay. I have experience with portals now. So, I did not want to be in that boat. Let's put it that way at all. And, but the people that were in the boat, they reported seeing green and blue lightning. Okay. And, but they couldn't see like where it was going or where it was coming from, but they were seeing very interesting, odd lightning out there. And they said that there were square formations in the clouds up there, and the water was doing it as well. And so they took pictures. I never got completely debriefed on what all they saw out there, but, we didn't get the action that we were expecting because we couldn't see. But they did have some action out there. And we believe that it was a very high possibility that the ship did reappear that day. Wow. We just couldn't see it.
And I mean, if they know, if the government or whoever knows it's going to reappear, of course they're going to just, roll some fog in. They're not just going to let people witness that. Right. Especially if they know exactly where it's going to be.
Yeah, exactly. It was a little cover up. I mean, that was just our feeling. I think all of us had the same feeling. So they were just covering it.
They knew you guys were out there. They knew you guys were like, all right, we can't let them see it. We're going to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah. They put a hologram up. I don't know what that was. I have pictures of the fog. It's super thick.
So have you looked at Montauk itself? How deep does that facility go? Or do you have any idea?
Interesting, because I was tasked a target after the fact of that for my buddy Michael, DHP, Michael Roser. Okay.
Yeah, I know
him. Michael's cool.
I was in Belize with him for 15 days, actually.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, he told me about that. Y'all and Jim Goodall. Yeah, I heard all about that. That's my dance partner. Yeah. Okay. So he was with us on that trip. He was in Montauk with us. Michael was. And we had a really cool time with Michael. And so he had tasked me with the target of where we did a healing ceremony. Okay. So this is something I had not gotten into. We actually were there doing a healing land ceremony there too, with all the survivors of the Montauk program that were there with us. It was actually on Saturday that morning when the fog had rolled in and we couldn't see the ocean. We went to Camp Hero and did a big old ceremony out there to try to help release some of the souls and all that negative energy, and just to heal it and to heal the people. Okay. Mm-hmm. And yeah, where this circle is, where we were kind of in a roundabout in the barracks area. They say that's where, I don't know if that's where they were doing teleportation and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was really, really interesting because some of the survivors, when we were standing out on the bluff, they call it the bluff. It's like the super high edge that like looks out over the ocean. There's like 100-foot drop off or more that goes straight down to the ocean. And there's signs that say, stay back 25 feet. Of course, everybody's like right on the edge looking down. And they were telling us about how when they were children in this program, they would jump off that cliff for flying lessons.
Wow.
Kind of like Peter Pan. Yeah. A lot of superhuman experiments were done there. And I think that's partially how a lot of those kids lost their lives there too.
But
from probably doing stuff like that.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Yeah.
But as far as the underground part goes, like, did you get a sense of how deep?
Yes.
Is this just like a surface, like a few miles, a few levels below the surface? Or are we talking about an extremely deep dome here?
It was very deep. Okay, so I was tasked with the target of remote viewing that circle. Okay, and to find out what's going on there, and I didn't know what this was, and my data was like teleportation. There was all sorts of, like, I was actually remote. My data, first of all, was like full of like metals and like copper and minerals and things like that. And then I was getting into metal, and I kept going deeper, and I was going straight down apparently in this target, and there was like generators, there were crystals down there. I mean, there was all sorts of like interesting stuff in this area. Which is some of the same data that I'd come across with other targets, like the Bermuda Triangle, okay, with some like crystals that were down underneath the ocean that were basically used for power generating and things like that. And the Dark Pyramid of Alaska too. There's some of the same data for a lot of these targets that I do. But yeah, there's definitely some sort of big power generator down there. There's just a big facility down there too. And I don't know where it goes. Once I started realizing that I was poking around in something I wasn't supposed to probably be poking around in, I got out of it for my safety.
And yeah. I don't blame you at all. Have you ever encountered, like, are there securities or stuff like, or I guess facilities that you can't remote view? Like, is there some sort of block or something like a firewall? Do you ever encounter that?
I haven't yet. I mean, but here's the thing. Like, I am very intuitive. And of course, when you're remote viewing, I got to go with my gut. If something feels off and I don't need to be looking at something, I pull out of it immediately. And so that's why I have to be careful who I allow to task me targets. I have to be able to trust that person, and they have to know the parameters of like where I'm going and where I'm not.
Right. Yeah. Right. No, I mean, there's nothing that is, go with your gut. Simple answer.
Yes.
I mean, that's
100%. It'll keep you alive.
That's how all of our decision making should be done. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And I've learned nothing else at all past few years. It's just to go with my gut.
Well, and that's why what we see right now on the news and propaganda and everything, they're constantly pumping you with information. So you're in your head overthinking everything, and you don't even know how to tap into your gut anymore. And that's what they want. And that's why these people seem like they have no common sense anymore. I mean, they're literally being manipulated away from using their intuition. So,
oh my gosh, and the checking the facts and all that kind of stuff, like so that we don't use our rational brains.
Right.
It's all mind control. Yeah,
it is. 100%. A lot of MK Ultra going on here. Totally.
Yep. So I'm gonna
MK Ultra mind control is
Yeah.
And what's interesting about that is that Allie Carter, the female who came forward dropping all the names. She was a trafficking survivor and making allegations about Joe Biden, Obama, all these celebrities and stuff. And she talks about the underground tunnel network that goes to these celebrities' houses and what's actually going on. But she talked about something I've never heard before, and it's the MK Ultra blueprints. And she talks about a blueprint. It's like a physical blueprint that's broken up into quadrants. And this is how they monitor your altars and create your altars. And like, it's each MK Ultra victim has a set of blueprints, and they can like basically track that person through life and steer them in certain scenarios and whatever they want to do. Like, that person doesn't actually understand, they have no free will if they are a victim to this. And the movie The Adjustment Bureau kind of shows the same map in the book, Aaron, what I'm talking about? Like, like, at first I thought that book in the movie was just like a sci-fi aspect to it all, until I heard Allie Carter talking about this. I'm like, oh, they actually have blueprints, and they're actually monitor these people and track them. Like, I don't know. It's completely wild. Anyway, that was just a little side note, something I've been
gosh. Well, Tyler, I had never even heard of a lot of this stuff before, and and I do the remote viewing, and which is a form of mind control, and it's controlling my mind. Okay, and but I wasn't super familiar with the altars and all that kind of stuff until I went on this trip to Montauk, and I was with James Rink and Arkeem Ra. Okay, and I spent a lot of time with these guys. It seems like I've gone out of the state. I live in Georgia. I've gone out to like conferences and events, and even to Florida and stuff. To the Day of Being, and everywhere I go, James is there. Okay, James Reed. So like I become really good friends with James. Yeah. Well, you're there too, Tyler. You were at the Florida trip. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we're kind of I guess I'm kind of running into my soul tribe, and we have a lot of things in common. But they were James and Arkeem really opened me up to the mind control and the altars and all these secret programs and stuff that I never in a million years could have even fathomed being real. 10 years ago, I would have been like, whoa, okay, it's possible. But now I believe it. Like, it's a deep, deep rabbit hole.
And that's why it's important. That's why it's important that you're doing the work you're doing and actually remote viewing these targets, because it brings another layer of credibility to the testimonies. So like guys can come forward with these memories, but when they say this happened to me here, and then you remote view it and you're like, oh, wow, this is an underground facility. I do see this. And the data matches like this. That's really important in a time where everyone's getting ridiculed. So I think it's extremely crucial, actually.
Yeah, I think that's how I kind of connected with a lot of those guys. Was I had remote viewed things that they had been talking about for a long time. And I didn't know these people. I'd never met them before until I went to your conference. And and so there is a connection. And yes, it's just a natural connection between us and me and them and the work that I'm doing and the things they're talking about. And so, it's actually, it works. We work well together.
Mm-hmm. And you guys had some Sasquatch activity out at the conference, right?
We did. Well, we went up and were stargazing one night. The last night we were there, I know James had more activity than the rest of us. But yeah, we were up there looking at the stars, and we had some interesting activity up there. I think James got some of it on. He recorded some of it, I believe. But there was definitely something in those woods for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people had it. Like even my dad had an experience where he heard like whistling, and other people had experiences where in the first conference too, like somebody every time has some sort of communication with the Sasquatch via telepathically, or they're hearing sounds. Whatever the case is. So I do believe there's something going on out in Grafton, Illinois as well.
Man, there's so many cryptids out there.
Right.
I mean, my goodness. Yeah. What is that thing that was on the side of that mountain? It was like the
Piazza bird or whatever.
Piazza bird.
Piazza bird. Yeah, that was something crazy that clearly they drew what they saw, like it's one of those things like that.
Oh, yeah.
That was a real... You could call that a cryptid, essentially. It's whatever that was.
For sure.
Yeah, it's like some sort of winged bird dragon with horns and claws.
Giant though. Yeah.
Giant, yeah.
And it ate people. It ate humans.
Yeah. Supposedly,
That's the whole story about how they captured it, was that they actually used a human as bait at the cave entrance, and they were able to. That's how they ended up killing it. By using the human as bait, and they might have even lost somebody in the process, but they did end up killing it. That's the story, right?
Oh yeah.
So one last topic before we wrap things up. Have you encountered any bases or facilities on other planets or planetoid bodies?
Absolutely. I sure have. And which could potentially relate to the secret space program. I believe two of them, as a matter of fact. And these are blind targets, that I've gotten, and that Barry Littleton assigned me. So I want to give him credit. TRAPPIST-1 star system. That's one. And then the other is the dwarf planets of Makemake, Sedna, and Haimea, I believe are the names of them.
Oh, Maki. Some people call it Maki.
Maki. Yeah. I said Make. I don't know how to pronounce it. That sounds Japanese or something. Yeah.
I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So, that's my Southern pronunciation. Okay.
The Americanized pronunciation.
Yes, Americanized. I'm American. Okay. But anyways, yeah. So I was assigned these targets. Now it was the ones with the dwarf planets. That was actually, the target was ET bases on those planets. Okay. I was remote viewing ET bases on each of those planets. I was picking up on, well, let's go to TRAPPIST-1. Let me start at that one. TRAPPIST-1 star system. I thought when I got done with that target, I usually will send Barry my data, okay, all the stuff that I've written down after that session is over. And when I got done with the target, I thought that I had remote viewed Earth in the future. And Barry got the data and he said, wow. He was like, okay, so what did you think? He always says, what do you think this is? And I said, well, it appears to be Earth in the future, but there's a lot of slavery going on. I said, it looks kind of bleak. Okay. And he said, okay, well, that's very interesting. And because I was seeing high-rise buildings, mid-rise apartments, vehicles, humans, and humanoids. Okay, so I wrote down humanoids, not only humans. I was seeing road systems like highways and vehicles like vessels in the air and whatever they were. I can't say they were completely like airplanes, but I didn't know what they were. But yeah, I just thought it was Earth, but in the future potentially. But people were being held there against their will. And I remember picking up on top brass, like military, like people like generals in our military and things like that were there. Like a whole lot of military action was going on up there. And so that was a very interesting one. There's a whole lot of data on that. I have a show on it. If anybody wants to see it at the Cryptid Huntress, just go to my playlist.
And this is the TRAPPIST. This is the TRAPPIST-1. Yeah.
TRAPPIST-1 star system. Yeah. The first thing that I like for my sketch, for my stage 3 section of my, because there's like, I usually go like 5 stages usually on my remote viewing targets. And my stage 3 is a drawing or a sketch. And on that drawing, it looked like a set of stairs, like a staircase or an escalator or something. I don't know what the significance of that was, but I do remember drawing that. But it had something to do with, there was a lot of like mining going on there, mining and like digging and something for natural resources. I guess mining for natural resources was going on there.
Sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Are y'all familiar with that one?
Well, no, I'm familiar with that. Like people have testimonies where they're mining on other, like Tony Redwigs is mining on, they're doing mining on Ceres colony. And then we've heard Neil Isley going to the moon, mining on the moon. And it just comes up in testimonies a lot.
A lot of these SSP testimonies, it lines up. Yeah.
I actually have a memory. I could say it's a dream experience memory, whatever, of being on some sort of planet somewhere, mining as a slave. We're mining, and we come across something so significant. And I remember reporting to the authorities what we found. I don't remember what it was, and everyone's like, "What is it? What is it? What is it?" And then I overheard someone say, I don't know what it is, but it's so significant that Bill Gates is on his way to this planet right now. It's something
really,
with Bill Gates. And I don't know, it could be, it might not mean anything, but let's just pretend it was true. I mean, these elites and these people, like they know about these programs and they're probably involved and they probably are going on trips all the time. And we heard that Andrew Bashago talk about being on Mars with Obama and like, and being part of that time travel program. They all know, they're all in the know. Not maybe, it's compartmentalized, but this planet is nothing what we think it is.
Oh my gosh, absolutely not. I mean, I've actually been assigned time travelers as a blind target. Okay, it was like the keepers of our timelines and time travelers, and nothing is what we're taught whatsoever. And that's why I just love doing these remote viewing targets and looking into things like this and these off worlds, off planets. But there's humans there, and and maybe, I mean, the humans are considered to be like ETs, but they're just like humans too. So I don't know. It gets a little muddy there, but they look like us.
I think you're going to come across the 5-star human figure all over the galaxy. I really do.
Yeah,
I mean, it's part of the template for this reality. So, I mean,
Yeah.
obviously an intelligent life form is going to take that form, but not in every case. I think it can appear just like any insect or bug or aquatic animal we see on this planet. You could probably find an intelligent version of it somewhere.
That's right. And they're going through portals and stuff too. And I forgot to mention when we were first talking about portals, and I had mentioned I had remote viewed Earth's natural weaponized portals. I immediately started off that target on the sun, or in the sun. I was coming out of I was being sucked into a portal and out of a portal through the sun, which I thought was weird because I didn't know what the target was. It was blind. Okay. But Barry said that was very interesting that I actually was on the sun when I was remote viewing a portal for the Earth.
Yeah.
So
a number of people talk about the sun being a portal. And I can film. I talked about this in the last episode. I filmed, like, you can film. Anyone could go out and film the sun in the middle of the day when it's at its highest point, zoom in all the way. When you watch the video, zoom in again. You're going to catch, most of the time, you can see things coming in and out of the sun. Like, it's, you can catch it with your phone. I don't know how it works, but I mean, I've seen it and it's pretty wild.
Yeah. It's not what we're taught.
Yeah,
that's for sure. You know, and I have a kid. I'd hate to be his teacher and hear all the things that come out of my kid's mouth, knowing who his mama is,
right?
And all the things that I talk with him about, because he knows when I do these targets. I mean, I teach him as I go, you know, and I'm sharing information with him, and I'm just like, okay, this is not what you're going to learn in school, but this is what mommy remote viewed. So, but you still got to take your tests and listen to your teachers, okay?
Right.
Play along while you're there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
That's amazing.
We gotta teach our kids. Yeah.
That's amazing. You have the courage to do that. You know, some parents might, well, not everyone is as confident in their information as you are. So they don't know what to tell their kids, you know. And it's tough because you don't want to like interfere with their path and whatever they're supposed to, you know, encounter anyway. But I think it's incredible that, you know, you have that kind of relationship with your son. So.
Oh yeah, there's no telling what he's talking about right this minute. Actually, at his school, who knows?
Oh,
nice.
Have you heard of the Montauk surfer, the time traveling surfer that appears?
I
sometimes?
think that was mentioned, but I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, I didn't know if you're familiar. Apparently, like
it sounds cool.
Apparently, there's a lot of surfers in that area, but there's like this. People have like experiences where this surfer will like show up in their room or like come through their computer screen or whatever. And there's like this mysterious photo where this like modern day young guy, like look like he's from now, is in this old photo, like as a surfer. He just doesn't belong. And people say that he's a time traveler. Anyway, I don't know if you had heard of that.
Oh yeah. No, we have so many time travelers and pictures right now and stuff. People holding up cell phones at like a boxing match from the 60s or something. I don't know, like Apple iPhones and stuff. I mean, I think there's so much time travel going on right now, back and forth. I mean, I used to listen to Art Bell and all those time travelers he had on his show. Yeah. And now, you know, when I was out in the field at the meadow where we do some of our field research, I was walking into the meadow one night. I was hiking in with with one of my teammates and his daughter. And I heard somebody scream from across the creek, from across the water source, time travel, like really loud. And nobody else heard it but me.
It was you. Was it a female or a male?
It was a female. And I was so taken aback by it. I was like, did you guys not hear that? Like, it was a super loud voice. And it took like a week or two later, y'all, maybe a month, I realized that was my voice.
That's what I was just going to say. As soon as you said that, I said, that was you. Like, I felt it.
Yeah.
Like,
it was 100% my voice.
I've heard stories like that where the person will come and like let themselves know that time travel is real. You know,
it was me. I have goosebumps right now thinking about it. It was so profound. It was confusing when it happened, but then when I realized that was my voice, because I thought about it for a long time, and I was like, "What was that?" And then one day it just dawned on me that was me. So now, was I remote viewing myself and doing like a deep mind probe? Maybe. And letting myself see what it sounded like to do a deep mind probe on someone, maybe. Or did I time travel?
Or you time traveled.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I time traveled.
Right.
I hope.
You
yeah.
Did. There's no doubt. Doing what you're doing, the field that you're in, like, who knows what our future timelines look like, but Like, there's no question that
Yeah.
you or any one of us could end up stumbling into like a time travel, like stumbling upon time travel and come
Yeah.
back. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like a movie.
I've already manifested it now, so I'm gonna
Right.
have to.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
happening. Aaron,
Yeah.
did you want to ask her anything before we wrap this up?
No, I was just going to mention. So Sean David Morton has a book series called Sands of Time. I don't know if you've heard of it or read it,
No,
but
I haven't.
it's based on. I think he said it was like it's supposedly based on a real story that he got a hold of somehow, and he had to make it into like a fiction, story, even though it's all real. So he sent Tyler and I the book one, and I'm still actually reading. I'm only like halfway through it still, but it's dealing with Montauk and the stuff that went on there in like the 50s. The experiments with this, the centers around this main character who they bring in as a scientist to work at Montauk, and then he ends up doing all these crazy things, and then he finds out that there's this like shadowy group that's controlling it, that he gets in trouble, for what he did, basically, because he realizes like, oh, this isn't just like they're just trying to do experiments and figure out things. It's like they have agenda. There's a shadowy group that has these specific agendas that they're very nefarious and all this kind of stuff, and it kind of goes from there. But it deals with time travel, like that's like the biggest aspect of it. So,
Yeah, he did send us that book. I haven't read it yet. Now I have. Now
you need to.
Yeah,
I'm only like halfway through book one, but it's amazing. And there's like at least 4 books, I think, in the series.
Yeah, there is. Yeah. And guys, we have to acknowledge Aaron's hat. This is the introduction.
I was
Aaron's
gonna say
first time wearing a hat in a podcast, but it's awesome. It's a Sasquatch
world premiere of the Sasquatch hat.
I like it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
My partner gave this to me. Actually, it was a gift.
I love that.
Yeah, I saw him walk up to the SUNFIRE Fest wearing it, and I was looking for you in the crowd of people, and I didn't even register it was you because I'd never seen you in a hat before. Like, oh, Aaron's wearing a hat. That's so weird. Like
oh.
Yeah, it's funny. Anyway, this has been incredible. Can you please let people know how they can find you and what shows you host? I know you're doing all kinds of stuff.
Oh, yeah. I stay busy. Thank you. Yeah. The easiest place for people to find me is my website, thecryptidhuntress.com. All of my shows are there, all my social media links. It's a great way to get in touch with me. There's a little box that pops up as soon as you go to thecryptidhuntress.com. And it says, hey, do you want to talk to me? So just type in something. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. But also, I have a really great YouTube channel. It's called The Cryptid Huntress. I do live shows there every Wednesday and Thursday. Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern, Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. Thursday night is my remote viewing show. And I talk about cryptids. I talk about all the stuff, time travel, teleportation, whatever. It's all there. Whatever I feel like talking about is there. And then on Saturday and Sunday nights, I'm a weekend host at Spaced Out Radio. I have a show there called Off the Trails. And that is at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 Central, every Saturday and Sunday night. So you guys can find me there. And any events that I'm going to be speaking at, they're all on my website. So I go to Bigfoot festivals and things like that. So small town stuff. Usually that's what I got on my schedule for the rest of the year.
Awesome.
But thank y'all for having me.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm glad we finally got to lock you in for a solo interview because we got to really dive in. We haven't gotten a chance to do that. So I appreciate it. And guys, I was just on Spaced Out Radio with her last Saturday. So if you want to check that out, go over to Spaced Out Radio. And so go check that out if you feel compelled to. And thank you so much. Don't forget, our webinar is coming up. Our documentary is available. I'll be speaking at XCon. XCon sounds funny.
That sounds fun.
It's supposed to be like unexplained conference, but the XCon conference at the end of October in Springfield, Missouri, and that link is below if you want to come out and hang out. So
Margie K, it's like her conference, right?
Yeah. Margie K's.
Margie K.
Yeah, she's behind it all, and there you go. I think that's it. And thank you guys so much for tuning in. We love you all, and until next time, have a great evening.
Good night, guys.
Bye, guys.
A lot of this information has been kept sort of locked up or kept undercover because of the invasion of the Smithsonian group way back in the 1880s.
What actually happens is it's not taken to preserve it, it's taken to hide it.
And about 4.5 miles from here, a cave was discovered. It's not really a cave as such, it's a man-made cavern system.
But how the hell do you get that much granite? Because the granite on the base of that damn near weighs what the dirt on the top of it weighs. Nobody knows what's underneath it. I've heard a theory that there's a spaceship underneath it.
There was copper and steel-plated artifacts that depicted men in armor with shields and helmets.
Including right here at Cahokia, there were reported 2 giants with double rows of teeth and 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Extra vertebrae or extra ribs in their cage. These are different races of people. They're not just regular humans.
Definitely is a stone burial chamber, and there's a large body in it, bones. I would say 15 to 16 feet.
I saw different types of extraterrestrials here with the Native Americans.
The peoples of the Cahokia Mounds actually saw the Birdman as some kind of cosmic being and not a humanoid being.
So this Birdman was the last and the pure and the true of his kind.
So yes, there were rituals, or there were dances and celebrations, and people would dress up like the galactic beings that were visiting. But there were actual physical galactic beings that were visiting.